Senator, I know that these talks are going to continue every day, the president says, but what is the point at this stage if the Speaker of the House has no running room to do a long-term deal? And if, in fact, there are problems on the Democratic side, let's be frank, on the House side with Nancy Pelosi when it gets to entitlements, what's the point of talking every day? And should the president be saying that he will veto any short-term arrangement?
Andrea, it is important to talk every day because that's the only way that you establish any momentum or consistency. And after hundreds of hours of these negotiations myself in the Fiscal Commission and the Group of Six, one thing that's clear, unless you stay focused, unless you stay on it and you're persistent, nothing happens. And I believe there is a way forward, and the way forward is tax reform that actually reduces tax rates but does produce some more revenue because the economy is more efficient, we're more competitive, and we do away with some of the loopholes, the shelters, the exclusions, the preferences that now riddle the tax code.
I know that a lot of that was discussed by the Biden group, and we're talking about returning to that format. But some Democrats say that the Biden plan wouldn't even pass the Senate. Do you have 60 votes for the Biden plan?
No, I think, look, it's interesting that in the Senate, I believe there is support among Democrats and Republicans for the so-called big deal, at least $4 trillion, because that's what it takes to fundamentally change our fiscal condition and get us moving in the right direction. But it does require both sides to give ground. It does require savings on the entitlement side of the ledger and on the revenue side of the ledger. After all, revenues are the lowest they have been in 60 years as a share of our national income. So those who say it's only spending, they've got it half right, because we do need to cut spending. We also need to find a way to get more revenue out of a system that is hemorrhaging revenue to these offshore tax havens, abusive tax shelters, and the tax expenditures who many of the best economists in the country, including Chairman Greenspan, including other distinguished economists of a conservative viewpoint, have said is spending just under a different name.
But at this point, if we do come up short, if there isn't enough votes either for the Biden plan or for the big plan, and we're approaching August 2nd, do you think the president is correct, as he said today, to say he will veto any 30-day or 90-day extension to avoid default?
I do at this point because I think it's critically important to keep the pressure on both sides, not to settle for just getting by, just kicking the can down the road, but in fact to go for what we all know the country needs, which is the grand bargain, the big deal, $4 trillion of deficit reduction to get our debt going down, to put America on a stronger fiscal foundation going forward. That's really what's required. I believe it's still achievable, but we've got to change a little bit about how we talk about these things on both sides.
You said at this point you think the president is right to threaten the veto. What if it's August 1st at midnight? You're approaching August 2nd. The markets are clamoring. Would you still say that a short-term extension and continued talks are not the best option?
You know, you're a very good reporter. You pick up on nuance, don't you?
Well,
look,
we try.
I don't want to bargain against my position. So I think it's critically important that the president continue to push for what we all know the country really needs. And it's incumbent on both sides, to come together and do what's right for America.
Chairman Conrad, thank you very much. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And